Hello there, folks. This is Founder Layroon, and I'm here with Fantasy Grounds College and special guest LadyShel. We're going to go over a module that she converted for Grim Press. It's called the 10 Towns Expanded, excuse me. It's available on the Dungeon Masters Guild. We'll have the links in the description and after the show, of course. And we're going to go through the module a little bit and show you what it features. And then as an add-on, we would like to mention our older Royalty Jack module. It hasn't had a lot of love, so we're gonna tweet that out or put it as part of it, because it actually would go very well with this 10 Towns Expanded as well as the Ream of the Frost Maiden campaign setting. So without further ado, I am here with LadyShel. LadyShel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good because I'm inside. It's 103 outside. I'm really glad that I'm inside.
Yeah, I don't blame you. We went through that really bad heat wave here in Washington State. It was really horrible. So, 10 towns. So when I think about 10 towns, I'm thinking about snow and ice. So that alone kind of helps me with the idea of being too hot. So we have the conversion up here on the reference manual. I'm hoping that you guys can see this, but this is the cover for it. LadyShel, how long do you think it took you to convert this by chance? Just a rough idea.
I don't have any idea. I would say at least a week or two.
Okay.
Maybe more.
Okay.
It include the basic thing about this is the author that made this because of the fact that if you're playing Ream of the Frost Maiden, that when you're in 10 towns, there isn't a whole lot to do, and a lot of times the parties do not want to leave the specific town that they start in and go and travel around the lakes and stuff to the different towns. So he decided to give more content to each of the towns, and he even has one specific thing where a merchant will ask you to help take him to another town, be like a guards or something for his caravan as he's going. Did it get you to another town and you're still making some money and you get to see different things and you get to do different things, and it's a really cool module. I think it's a really good addition to Icewind Dale, and it can also be used if you were playing Legacy of the Crystal Shard.
Yeah, I see that, where they took some material from there. They even linked the module and the Icewind Dale setting right into the reference manual. So the next thing is that mostly this book pulls on the SRD. So if you're a new player or somebody that just got a license for Fantasy Grounds, in your library, you want to load up your bestiary at least and your data folder. And then we have the Icewind Dale campaign setting loaded just in case. We're not going to go over that, but we have it. 10 Towns Expanded is the module we're talking about, and that goes in your modules folder. And then Shel and I did a module together a few months ago, and that was Royalty Jack's Wilderness Outfitter. So they both would fit very well as supplemental material into the campaign for the Ream of the Frost Maiden, or honestly in any ice or snow setting, especially Royalty Jack's. It's very generic. It doesn't have 10 towns in the actual title, so you can use it anywhere. But anyhow, so what she was saying is that she's converted it. Took her about a week and a half probably. The introduction states that you can use it for different supplemental material for Icewind Dale Ream of the Frost Maiden campaign. There are some folks in here, and looks like there's some rumors, and you have some tables for some downtime, and then you have gambling and such mentioned in here, food and drink, and there's links to actual dishes. I converted one of them for my own personal campaign. There's some different tools and resources right up in the front of the introduction, so don't skip that part, because it actually has a lot of the tables and things that you might use all the time. So if you're running this module and you need some of this kind of material, if you go to the introduction section, it has a bunch of tables and stuff and rules and not really rules so much, but just like content. So like you can roll and do some gambling in town because that seems to be one of the big pastimes. So it looks like it goes through most of the main cities. So after the intro, after you get through the gambling, and it talks about taverns and the inns, and then some of the other different things like how they're dressed and what kinds of things they're doing to keep them busy and survive. They have a low supply consideration. So if places run out of supply, they raise their prices. But then even raising your prices after a while doesn't do anything because you're starving to death. So having a extra 10 gold doesn't fix that problem. So there's lots of things to consider when you're playing the campaign, and this definitely gets into that. It talks about renting a sled and the travel times. It talks about how to prepare the locations, so when they go to each area, you have a rough idea of adjusting the encounters for the amount of distance and time. And then you also kind of gives you an idea of if you're going to settle or make this your home. So that's really cool. And then they talk about the sacrifices to a reel, which is a really big part of the module. So that's something that you may want to pick up to supplement your game, even if you've already started it. I mean, you're going to have lots of extra material. So I'm going to go to Bremen, and this one features different types of areas that would be featured in the main module. And there's a rating for comfort level and such. So it has a snowflake rating, and it's basically 1 of 3. And each location talks about or shows which ones are more friendly to adventurers and people visiting. And that also has to do with stores and facilities and that sort of thing. So some of the towns are not as great. So there might be a single shop or something, and the guy has a monopoly on everything. Or in another town, it might be several shops. So there's more competition. So the prices get lowered. So they have different ways to kind of justify or tweak your current campaign setting in regards to survival, having access to resources, that sort of thing. So Bremen is set up with its own NPCs. It has some tables and stores that you can pull from, and then it also has some specific things that are specific to the town, and one of them happens to be the 5 tavern fist fights. So can you tell us about that, Shel, a little bit?
Helps if I push the Alt key and not the space bar. The 5 Tavern Center is 5 different taverns that were created by 5 dwarven brothers that each wanted to have a tavern. So they built their taverns on like a square, and they sit around each other. And in this particular blurb of text here, it talks about that there's a lot of tavern fights, and fights occur almost every night in the taverns. And there's a little section that's called 5 Tavern Fist Fights. And this is one of the ones that I thought sounded pretty interesting. So the DM rolls a D100, first of all. If the result is 80 or lower, there's going to be a bar fight. So in other words, it's a lot of chance to have a bar fight. And you're going to start with 3d4 commoners. So there's an encounter here that I've created for the 3d4 encounter commoners, and then they all fight each other, and there's no weapons, no lethal blows. And if on that D100 you get a 40 or lower, the characters inside or directly in front of the tavern can't avoid being pulled into the fight. And if you get a 20 or lower, the brawl will escalate using the lair actions below, and the fight ends when no more than a quarter of the original combatants stand. And some of the lair actions, it says you could have an additional 1d4 commoners pulled in the fight, or you can have a chair get thrown and some random person will have to succeed on a DC 10 dexterity saving throw, or they get 1d4 bludgeoning damage. Someone also could swing a full full mug of ale, and as a dwarven cleric, I think that's a waste of ale for sure. But a random character must succeed on a DC 10 dexterity saving throw, or they become blinded until the end of their next turn, as the ale must hit them in the face. Then the final thing that they have under the lair actions is that the fight becomes chaotic, and every creature that has at least 2 other combatants within a melee range of 5 feet must succeed on a DC 10 strength saving throw, or they fall prone. So that sounds like a fun time. I hope that in the rhyme game that I'm playing with Layroon, that he decides to use this, because this sounds like a lot of fun.
Nothing better than a tavern brawl fight. I mean, they do add a little bit of complexity and also fun. They also could add some things such as some aftermath or even allies after the fight. Maybe you'll gain one of your friends. So that's a really good way to segue in like a barbarian NPC into a player, is that maybe you have a small group and you want to expand your group, and you're in this tavern fight, and one of the guys that was fighting along with you randomly happens to be one of the barbarians that lives in the region, and he ends up teaming up with your group, and then maybe you'll have a new player in real life that wants to play, so you can turn that person into a player character, and they actually met at one of the bar fights. So it's a good way to expand your story and pull in other people if you need to as well. So for fishing contests, there is one already in the module, but it's more related to the encounter for fishing for knucklehead trout. But there's another add-on to it when they expand on this in the actual module. So this is for, if they've never really been in this setting, or if you want to use this in a different setting, this would work. It's a contest, basically a fishing contest that allows you to basically get in on some fun, see who gets to roll better as far as survival goes. And then there's a large fish encounter that looks like so there's a link directly to the Ream of the Frost Maiden, and it takes you to the Lake Monster quest. So they put that in there in case you want to segue that in, which is nice. So they kind of put their own little twist in here. And then there's a prize, of course. And then if you want to tie it in with Ream of the Frost Maiden, they linked it in the module itself. So if you don't have the module, it will prompt you. So that is basically...
I was just going to say, it's like that for any time that we link to another module, we'll put a little... if you're looking at the reference manual, for example, they say wilderness survival, and it says ROTFM, and that means that the link goes to the Rime of the Frost Maiden. They're assuming that you're going to be using this with Rime of the Frost Maiden, so most likely someone's going to have that module, so it would go directly to the content in the module. Right. And it's same thing if you had something that was linking to like Xanathars or wherever. So if you didn't have it, I mean, you wouldn't be able to access that information, but you would always know where exactly it's getting the information if you should decide you wanted to buy this particular content. Right. Because the Fantasy Grounds having their sale right now, and there's a lot of things on sale.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Tomorrow's the last day of the sale, the summer sale. It stops tomorrow afternoon around, I think, 9:30 a.m., something like that, Pacific time. So you still got a little time left if you're going to go out and purchase anything for Fantasy Grounds. Definitely pick up a license if you don't already have one. Even if you're not a game master, you're just a player, you either get a subscription or a standard license. It's like 20% off or something like that. So it's not too bad. Basically, it takes care of your taxes and then some. So that's a good thing. So instead of paying $40 or whatever the tax is for it, the listed price is probably $40. Probably end up paying about $45 after everything's said and done, but depends on where you're at. But nonetheless, it would help cut down the cost a little bit. Okay, so this module goes into a bunch of different towns, and it has guides and different things that you can visit, and there's a lot of lore and tables and links into other areas and other content, so that if you want to include those in your campaign, there's some convenient links in there. East Haven has a bunch of stuff in it. There's some locations for Benrock's. This is more encounters for the East Haven town or section, and Banrock is probably one of the NPCs that you'll come across. And then Pomab's Emporium. This came up in the in actual video games. If you've played some of the classic video games, Pomab's was featured in there. But there's a lot of different good content in here. Here, speaking of good mead, Lonelywood, Targos, Tourmaline. So you got all the main towns set in here, so that you have more information and more content to use throughout your adventure session. At the end is an appendix that actually features a couple songs for to use in Ream of the Frost Maiden, and then there are a whole bunch of encounters that you can use that are featured in this, where you can go back and there's encounters along the road. There's a encounter with orcs, commoners, and a goat. And if you actually go to the link, it takes you to the actual random encounter. So when you actually generate it, it comes up with...
I think the one with the orcs, commoner, and goat is there's a commoner going down the road with his goat, like a farmer, and the orcs attack him, and that's what I believe that encounter is about. So
I just generated an encounter like really fast. I just clicked once. Here's the encounter. Click the down arrow. And all those.
Oh no,
entries.
Allison, watch out! There's a lot coming up.
So
you're gonna die.
Well, Allison would probably help the goat and the guy. So that would help her out, so that way she's not overwhelmed. But this would be a full-on hour and a half encounter with this many combatants on here, because you have the commoner. He's got
you have 8 orcs there. There's no way she's getting out of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if she helped the commoner and the 3 or 4 goats, that would be helpful. Then you'd have a full-on party kicking butt on some 8 orcs. Excuse me. So
Good
basically,
thing she's 5th level.
Yeah, she's 5th level too. So she's a healer, and she can also kick butt. So don't have to worry about that part of it. Pretty cool. So I would say that if you're looking to supplement your content, this is the way to go. All right, so it's available on the DM's Guild now. We'll have links for this shortly after the show. And we also wanted to mention that we have another module that is on the DM's Guild. I didn't want to fail to mention this. And this is Royalty Jack's Wilderness Outfit. Basically, it's like a Cabela's out in the middle of nowhere. You have some NPCs. You have some notes here on how to use the content in here if you're unsure of it. And then you just have a ton of content like stores and bundled packs, and you have it's a big supply post where you're outside of the 10 towns and you need some kind of place to go. This would be a way to do it. So you would place this wherever you want in your campaign. And the people would have a place of refuge, like if they wanted to go buy something, a store or something, you wouldn't have to travel all the way back to 10 towns. And these guys kind of act as a halfway point between 10 towns and the wilderness. So wherever you're at, you can, stab this in the ground somewhere and call it the fortress. And it's like I said, it's like a big Cabela's place. It's like a huge log cabin, kind of a big river rock type place. And when you go in, it's pretty cozy. They have a bathhouse. It's built next to a natural well and spring and a hot spring. It's ran by a crew of developed NPCs that LadyShel and I had put together, and they all have a relationship to one another. You can substitute them for the names and what they do. Up to you how you want to handle it. But there's a lot of things in here that can help you with Ream of the Frost Maiden too. So if you haven't checked this module out, I think LadyShel was thinking about putting it on sale shortly, so we'll see what happens there. But either way, it's on the DMs Guild, and it is for sale as well. So we'll put that in the links. And LadyShel, is there any other content down here that you wanted to look at for the 10 Towns Expanded?
I just wanted to mention that Merle T. Jacks, the way when we developed it, we created it to be about 20 miles southeast of East Haven, and we have a dog sled that goes back and forth that you can get a one-way or a round trip thing and go back and forth. So 20 miles, I mean, it's going to be a day to get there. They stop halfway in the middle. And this map here is the overhead map of the outfitters with the roofs on. And we have another one with the roofs off where you can see inside the building. The building to the north is the bathhouse, and that has a custom dwarven built bath by Uncle Haglin, and it's all great stone and everything, and it's got his expert touch to it, and it's not made of wood. It's he's really proud of that, and it's hooked up to the hot springs, so you get a nice warm bath, and you could possibly, depending on what your DMs wants to do, allow it to. Was it that it could possibly take away a part of your
fatigue,
where you're tired, fatigue?
Yeah. So if you have an
level of exhaustion,
yes.
Yep. If you take one of those baths, because of the mineral water that you're soaking in, that you get that extra, effect.
Yeah, you have to soak for an hour.
If you look at this map, you see the top part is where the bathtub is, and you go down the stairs. So the bottom part is raised, isn't it, or is it up? I can't remember if I think it's down.
Yeah, the bathhouse is down. So if there's any water, it drains out. You don't ruin the hole.
And to the left and right are the changing rooms in the middle. And then at the bottom is where you enter the door at the center. And if you went completely straight forward, you would get to the area where you have the sinks to wash your hands. And then on the left and right, we have two, which I don't know why we have double potties.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, one is for number 1 and one is for number 2.
Oh, maybe.
That is exactly it.
Yeah, I can't see two people going in at the same time and sitting next to each other.
Because one of them has to be cleaned out, and the other one can just run off.
That's true.
So that's why they have that.
So anyway, you enter at the bottom, and then if you have to do any business in the potties, then you go there, and then you can wash your hands, and then you go up and change in the changing room, and then head into the nice deep tub with the warm hot springs water. And we actually did a one-shot with this, and one of the people did take advantage of that and was very relaxed from it.
Yeah, it takes away, fatigue and stress, and it's kind of a nice way to end your day or your travels. It does have a little bit of gnomish engineering in there with some dwarven tech. So there is pumped in hot water from the hot water springs, and it has a valve so that you can turn it on or off. So it's fairly complex for just a marble bathhouse. There's a little bit of plumbing involved there and steam. And then as Mopsy made this map, so Mopsy Maps, one of our community members, he went ahead and put some steam in here. But if you wanted to add your own, you could very simply just go to the effects. And we'll just add one thing here, not the whole map. But so I have a effect layer. So I'm going to select mist, and then I'm going to slow it down and blur it so it doesn't look ridiculous. So I turn it down a little bit, and then turn the speed down. Doesn't look like you're out in a blizzard. And I don't know if this is visible on the actual stream, but when you have this type of thing for effects, it will show across the map, and then you can turn it on or off when you need to. So you can turn the visibility off to everybody, or it can be visible to all or just the GM. So you have that choice now in Fantasy Grounds. Whereas before, you had to have separate maps that would do that. So kind of nice to have that capability when you need it. So yes, you can add steam. So that's just an idea that threw out there. So anything else, Shel?
Didn't we, the plants that you see in there, aren't those like where we're growing that for food?
Yeah, so the plants have a double thing here. They are in a hothouse-like environment. There are windows that lead outside. Their windows are up high, but they let in light, and then the natural light from outside. And then there's the steam and the warmth and the geothermal properties. And these plants need a lot of moisture, so they're in here growing, and they add to the ambiance and to the oxygen levels and that sort of thing. But then they also grow fruits and vegetables and stuff and flowers that you can pick off there. So this hothouse doubles as a greenhouse in the winter, or well, it's always winter there, but it's a way to grow fresh food without having to grow things outside. And it stays relatively warm in here and moist. It doesn't get dry and cold. And it's generally well kept. And they got a gardener that comes out here and works on it daily, picks up all the mess. If any leaves fall off, and harvest anything that's ready, replant, that sort of thing. So the bathhouse is actually well kept. The sinks are in good shape. Like I said, you can add water to it if you wanted to make it look like the sinks were full of water. I mean, there's lots of cool little tricks and things you can do as a game master. And then on these windows, now that we have the lighting, so when we built this module, there was no lighting features yet. We can add the windows in here and let in the light from outside. So when you're creating your line of sight, you don't just have light everywhere. You can make this kind of dim and dark inside here with just a couple lanterns and such, because there are some lanterns in the corners here that hang off the walls. And there's one or two in the changing rooms. But when you have the natural light outside, it'll bleed through the window and reflect inside. It'll look really cool, the effect. So it's kind of, and then here, this is a big carpet, but also it's kind of spaced apart. So when you come up out of the bathhouse, you kind of drip and dry and wipe your feet, or kind of the water rolls off of it. So it's kind of a wide fibered carpet. So when you walk up the stairs, it gets rid of some of the water so you don't slip and fall. So there's all kinds of little things, details that went into this that may not be realized until you start playing with it. And of course, these chests are where you store your stuff and your clothes, and it has a key. So it's a really cool looking place. It's got some merit, and I think when we were making the show, I really didn't care for it too much. I thought it was kind of but now that I look back at it, it was actually not too bad.
We need to make an updated version with all the stuff on it now that we can make it from Unity and add all the effects and stuff. We couldn't do that at the time because we had to start in Classic so that it could be available for people to use in Classic as well as in Unity. Yep. But now that Unity is pretty much all that most people use, we can add all the effects and make add the lighting, because we didn't have lighting back then either. And another thing, when you mention about the plants and stuff in there, we should have made that be part of our store, that people could buy tomatoes and stuff. Can you imagine all the money that you would make with people in the snow that can't get tomatoes anywhere else? They can go to Multi-Jacks and get their fresh tomatoes.
Yeah. The people that manage this place, Multi-Jack and his family, the Jacks, we call them, the Jacks could potentially make a little profit off that. They can probably raise the cost like 3 times, 5 times the amount. But I think they mostly grow it for themselves. But having the access to plant life in the middle of nowhere is incredible, because normally you're exposed to things for food. You just have tubers and potatoes and those sort of things. You don't really have a lot of flowering items, and if they do, it's very brief. So this would be a really good way to role play out anything that's related to nature. So maybe you have a druid character, or a ranger, or someone who just loves nature, like an elf maybe would benefit from this. So there's all kinds of things, like tertiary things, that you could potentially use in your campaigns to kind of enhance the role playing. and gives you a starting point to kick off your campaign. So if you don't have a good place for your players to hole up, this might be a good place for that, so that you have pretty much everything you need here. You have transportation, you have guides that will take you out and take you fishing or take you exploring out in the wilderness. You have, the transportation is a daily sled that goes. One sled comes from 10 towns, and one comes from this Merle T. Jack's Outfitters each day. So there's one voyage going back and forth each day. They meet in the middle somewhere, and they tell each other of any news or anything going on, and then they take a short break, in other words, and then that's also their way of checking for danger, or maybe the other half of the journey is behind. So if they meet them at a weird spot along the road, then something might have happened, or maybe weather conditions, whatever. So we kind of have that covered as far as traveling back and forth. We made some encounters just in case, if you wanted to make that part of your campaign. So we put a lot of thought into this, actually, because most modules you kind of have to either make it all up, or there's a lot of pinpointed things that have to happen. And this one kind of gives you more of the flexibility to do your own thing, but it also gives you ideas on how you might want to run your campaign or add to your campaign. That way it's not too such small material.
Don't forget that we have where we train animals too.
Yep.
We have like your sled dogs or whatever. Like if you have animals with you and you want them trained, that you could drop off your animal.
Yep.
And about a month, I think, is the time. And then you come pick them up, and they'll have some training.
Yeah, so we have an animal training service, and LadyShel detailed this a lot. So there's a formula if you want to use that to feed, train, and shelter. There's some notes here, and then some of the things that animals would get advantage on, or potentially, is that you have these different traits, and these are pulled from different types of animals, but you have hunting, tracking, guard duty, attacking, stunts, tricks. So these are just some things that may be something that your animal companion would be trained to do if you left it with Merle's training team. You also have backpacks that you can buy, bedrolls. There's some cooking utensils and just things for climbing mountains. There's the dog sled. You can actually buy the entire dog sled plus the sled as one unit, or you can buy them individually. But you have to have at least 3 dogs per animal or per human. Otherwise, they won't sell it to you because of the limitations. So the minimum is 3 strong husky-like dogs is usually what they need for a sled in one person. So it's, most of the sleds are for 2 people and some gear. So you got to imagine you're carrying your stuff too. So that's why you need 3 dogs. And then we had the field dressing. So if you do any hunting or fishing and you want to stuff something or make a memorable type of trophy or something out of it, they have a service for that. They also have fishing tours. They'll take you to a lake that you're guaranteed to catch something depending on the time of year. Then there's all the cold weather gear, and you got the hot bath service, and then there's just a bunch of things that are related to the actual area and the environment. And of course, you got some regular gear and some wool clothing, fishing tackle. You have taxidermy stuff, so there's a template where you can use this as just a way to build your own service. So all 3 of these templates are for Game Master if you want to fill out your own rules as to how much it costs to carve up and hollow out and make the animals into a taxidermy type situation. And then, of course, we got some narrow netting, a mess kit. There's a lotion of cold resistance, which is kind of magical, but it's kind of alchemical as well. So, but it gives you the resist cold effect. So there's some really cool stuff. Like you got jerky, which is some fresh dried meat. There's herbalism kits. You got a heavy fur coat that you can get. It's made of wolf fur, and it's super warm. So like you don't have to wear a lot of gear if you wear that. So just there's all kinds of really cool little things in here. It's like a hidden treasure, is what way I would look at it. Yeah, at first glance,
Basically a location. It's more a location than it's got just tools for you to use, and you just think up what you want to do. We're not we do have a couple of tables and stuff of suggested things, but it's all based on what the DM wants to do. And yeah, I think it could really add to a campaign, and we
yep.
hope that you agree. And I think I will be putting this on sale 20% off,
Yeah,
maybe for the next 10 days.
I would just put it
So,
on sale for the rest of the month, and that way
okay.
make yourself a reminder to change it back.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
and then what we'll do is we'll just leave it at that until people understand what it is, and maybe it'll get better usage. I just think it's a shame we put a lot of work into it, and it's really not as popular as it could be. I don't really mind that. It's just interesting that we have all these really cool and really almost professional grade. Not saying ours, but there's some really pro looking stuff out there that could be used. And not to mention that this is stuff that the community made. So you want to support the community. So regardless of what the content is, check out the DM's Guild. There is Fantasy Grounds content on there. There will be a time where that might change a little bit, but for the most part, right now, that's what we have. So if you guys want to check out the DM's Guild, that is definitely something that you'll want to see if you're wanting to supplement your campaigns with anything extra. The canon stuff's great. I mean, I have the Ream of the Frost Maiden module loaded, and then I have the bestiary because I didn't want to load the player's handbook and the monster manual. Because Ream comes with its own stuff, and then the things that we've built are mostly built on the SRD anyways, or the Ream of the Frostmaiden. So if you do use these modules, it'll be helpful to have Ream of the Frostmaiden and the other content, but you can really just run it off the SRD and the bestiary, because that's what we did for the Wilderness Outfitters. Is we tried not to attach it to anything canon. And then the 10 Towns, though, does kind of rely on both of those content. So kind of up to what you have in your library and such. But, if you don't have it, you can just skip it. It's just not crucial to have it. So that's something that you want to keep in mind when you're purchasing content. So, Shel, do you have any other thing else? I have a couple announcements, and other than that, I'm pretty much good.
I don't have anything else to say, but thank you to anybody that's interested in watching our video or our stream here. And if you want to get this, we hope that that this helped you decide if you want to get it. And back to you, Leroon.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Again, we were reviewing 10 Towns Expanded, and we got into Merle T. Jack's Wilderness Outfitters because we feel that it's worth a second look. And we're going to put that one on sale, the Merle T. Jack's. The 10 Towns is not. That's really new, so that won't be on sale unless they decide to, Grim Press. But Merle T. Jack's and Wilderness Outfitters, definitely LadyShel and myself put that together. And I'd also like to mention that the community helps inspire us to do this stuff. So without all of you, it really doesn't matter. So thank you for your support and for checking out Fantasy Grounds College and the content on the DM's Guild and our social media. The other thing is at the end of this month, we're having our Founders Day weekend. That is July 30th to the August 1st. We have some special guests. Proud to announce that Saturday we will have Digital David in the afternoon, and in the morning, or anything conducive to Eastern time or European time. If you guys are up that early on the West Coast, that's great. But basically at 10 or so Eastern time, Doug Davison's going to be there, president and one of the owners of Smiteworks and Fantasy Grounds. And I think Brad's going to be there. And we're going to have a big announcement. And then after that, Digital Dave's going to come on for a couple hours, and we're going to talk about game prep and answer questions and kind of just do like a Q&A or a ask me anything or AMA type thing. don't have a strict format, but we are going to be talking about Fantasy Grounds. And then the next day, Saturday or Sunday, we're going to have Satine Phoenix and her husband, Jameson Stone. They're going to be talking about their new Kickstarter module that's for 5th edition. We're going to talk about Fantasy Grounds. They have a training session that they're going to do sometime this month, and we're going to run a campaign with them at towards the evening in U.S. times. So they're going to be here for a symposium in the early afternoon. They're going to take a break, and then they're going to play in a 2 to 4 hour one-shot type thing with the community. So that's going to be exciting. So that's a cool thing. And we're working on getting some other guests, but we're not sure if they're going to be able to make it or not. We haven't heard back. But I think we got a pretty good lineup right now as it is. And on top of that, we have one-shots on the calendar. There's still a lot of games out there that need to be filled. There's also a couple classes, so if you're interested in some classes, try that out. And if you're afraid of a different rule set, don't be, because there's a lot of really talented DMs and content makers out there that will help you. And the main thing is to get used to using Fantasy Grounds. So regardless of what rule set or what DM or what game it is, try it and see if you like the platform. Not so much the content is kind of over the top or part of it, but the actual Fantasy Grounds interface is what we want you to look at. So that is Founders Day weekend, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the month, we're just going to have classes and things to fill up the schedule. We do not have a rule set feature this month. We will start with another rule set focus month in August, starting the 2nd of August, basically after the Founders Day weekend. And that will be DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Castles and Crusades, that sort of thing. Mostly Castles and Crusades. I'm going to try to get Baboonsky to help us run that. He's working with, I think it's Fraud God Games or one of the other publishers. So we're going to be doing that in August. September.
There's lots of games going to be on for Founders Day, and not all D&D either. If
right.
A lot of times people say, "Oh, all you do is D&D." That is not the case. There are a lot of different games for different rule sets. So check them out.
Yep. So that'll be on our website, or come into our Discord. I'll have the links in the description of the video when we're done, including the direct links to the content that we showed. We're not advertising for Icewind Dale, Ream of the Frostmaiden. It kind of gets its own through Smiteworks and through Wizards of the Coast, but we do support that. And so mainly it's the DM's Guild content that we went over and the upcoming events. So that's all I got for plugs and for advertising. And just take your time, learn the platform, have fun with it, and maybe you'll end up like LadyShel. She'd gone through learning how to play, to playing, to learning how to use the platform. She went through helping us out in FGC. She did some social media training, and she now has her own gig that she's doing with Grim Press. She's doing conversions. She's starting to, think about making her own content. She's already tried to make her own content, and she's worked on this module with me. So hopefully, if you're really into this hobby, that you'll kind of run along the same path. So one of the underlying mentions that I want to say is, we want to learn to play, to run it, and then to create it. And that's kind of the slogan that we've come up with over the last couple of years. It's run, play, that sort of thing. So it's like learn, run, play, and then create. So that's kind of what the goal is to get you to that point if possible. So take care, everybody. This is Founder Leroon and LadyShel. Do you got any last words, LadyShel? We've done this 3 times. We said, we're going to go, and then we end up
coming. Talk to you guys later. Enjoy.